it used to be when you and I were kids, everybody got measles. And measles gave you lifetime protection against measles infection. The vaccine doesn't do that.
John Iadarola of the Damage Report takes a couple of swings at RFK Jr. and his shaky understanding of how vaccines work and how they relate to measles in particular. Every single day feels like it just gets crazier and crazier. And I mean, I don't want to think that I'm acclimating to bizarro land, but it's just exhausting. I know that's part of the plan, is just to wear us all down. But anyway, why don't we take a listen to this? I like John Iadarola. I think he comes up with some pretty good zings. While he's breaking it down for us, I'm going to have some opinions, and then I want to know what you think in the comments. But without further ado, let's roll it.
And so, yeah, that's RFK Jr. pining for the days when everyone would get measles. And yeah, thousands of people died from it. But think about the upside. You don't have to get a vaccine, which I have been paid to hate for decades. Oh, if only we could get back to that time. And we just might, based on how fast these outbreaks are spreading. See, more than 220 people in just Texas alone have been diagnosed with measles. California, New York, and Maryland have also reported cases of late. Because again, as you have more people, and it's not just conservatives over the last few years turning against vaccines, this is exactly what you would expect. And the rest of the interview was everything, again, that you would expect from RFK Jr.
But just a second. Why are people increasingly turning away from vaccines? What is it? Sure, there was a big bump during COVID when everybody gets afraid. It's misinformation. It's just misinformation. It's people like RFK throwing doubt onto the thing. And this study that has been debunked and debunked and debunked about vaccines causing autism, debunked. It's been debunked. It's been retracted. But once it gets out there, once an idea gets out there and enough people start squawking, well, what about, seems fishy, it throws doubt onto the efficacy of this proven scientific advance. Vaccines save lives. They make us healthier, but not if not everybody's taking them, folks.
From saying something like, yeah, everyone should have access to vaccines, to then fear-mongering about it for several minutes at a time. He was way harsher, by the way, on the vaccine and its supposed side effects than he was on measles at all. There was no nostalgia for the vaccine like there was for measles. He would say, this happens all the time. You see outbreaks constantly. Don't even worry about it. Even though, again, that's not true. People are not routinely dying in America of measles, although it might become routine now. His main point appeared to be that the government shouldn't force people to get the vaccine. And he railed against it, telling Sean Hannity that it causes adverse effects. He says it does cause deaths every year. It causes all the illnesses that measles itself cause, like encephalitis and blindness, etc. So people ought to be able to make that choice for themselves, while adding that the vaccine does, quote, stop the spread of the disease, which is, again, the only reason you would take it. And it is a good reason to take it. But this is what he is. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be banned from getting it, but you'll probably die if you do, so you shouldn't. He is laying the groundwork for an expansion of this outbreak and more outbreaks to come in other states and throughout the coming years.
Use a different example. I mean, some people are like, measles, I mean, yeah, sure, it's no fun, but what's the big deal? A couple people die. They were probably low-hanging fruit anyway. You're like, first of all, that's a horrible thing to think. Polio. What if it was polio? You're like, well, the vaccine. Come on.
By the way, Encephalitis International is a nonprofit. They reported that between 1 and 2 of the 1 million children who had a vaccination will end up developing encephalitis from it. Less than the incidence of all types of encephalitis outside of vaccines. So if you're truly worried about those effects, you don't avoid taking the vaccine, you get the vaccine, because the disease is far more likely to cause it. Obviously, again, I'm just saying all this stuff that every person knows who hasn't been deluded by right-wing media and con artists like RFK Jr. into believing.
Who hasn't been deluded, right? It's what everybody knows and understands, except the people whose thoughts and minds have been poisoned by deliberate propaganda and fear-mongering by the right and people like RFK.
Opposite of the truth, Sharon. What do you think?
I knew this guy couldn't behave himself. He was able to kind of fake the funk for a couple of weeks, maybe, barely. I knew he couldn't behave himself. He's done this before and people died. Communities had people who died, children, vulnerable people, and he still can't behave himself. And the fact that he's given a platform, I bet you Sean Hannity got the vaccine. You know he did. Okay, probably ran out and got a booster. Certain ages, you might need a booster, they're saying. But they're saying, I hate doing that when it comes to these kinds of specific science-related matters, but it's just so pathetic. This guy can't behave, and there's a direct result of that. People will die. Just like the guy who said, don't wear the mask, you don't need this, drink bleach. People died, and you may not be able to quantify, you may not be able to say how many people, direct result, died, but it's so clear. This is just sick. Vulnerable people who are listening to this garbage.
Yeah, you're right. We can't point to a specific person and say that they died because Donald Trump was in charge, but we know that there's a lot of theys. Again, in the state, it's so strange that as a society, we end up letting him be the determining factor of life and death in this, or, when he cuts off aid and intelligence sharing to Ukraine and hey, a bunch of Ukrainian soldiers and civilians die because he was a petty little bee. Like, don't put your society in this position.
I mean, I hate to continue to state the obvious again and again and again, but these people don't care about us, right? He's picked the people he's picked because they are sycophants and they're willing to kiss the ring and go along with his mafioso schemes, his two-bit shakedown artist, grifter schemes. And he's, people like RFK, I mean, they're just opportunists. You could talk about, oh, he's insane. Well, yeah, maybe they're half crazy, but they're opportunists, man. They either have a crazy agenda that they know will never fit into any legitimate framework of governance, or they're in it for a quick buck, or they've got some other personal scheme that they're trying to forward. No, none of them care about you. None of them are trying to make America great. Again, none of them are trying to make it a better country to live in. Wake up. I mean, I know if you're listening to this, I'm preaching to the choir.
Can't stay too long. I have a German Shepherd slow roasting on my grill, but I have to this real quickly because I'm low on electrolytes and I'm going to be sipping this fermented owl urine throughout the show, and I want to apologize. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Let me know what you think in the comments.